Hey everyone, welcome to a new video. It's been a long time since I've uploaded onto my YouTube channel, but yeah, doing this also live on Twitch, just kind of going over a checklist breakdown of the new 2021-22 Series 2 hockey. I meant to record a video for YouTube for Series 1 and the checklist breakdown, but I didn't. So kind of we'll go over the whole, like, how I get to these numbers and stuff like that, but essentially background along, like, for all of this is that I'm a massive, like, hockey card nerd. I like data, and I also like finding out what the best value is, and also as my job is doing the group breaks for Zephyr Epic, I like to use these to um, help make team pairs if we do team pairs, and help understand, like, what teams are strong teams, what teams are weak teams, and kind of go off of that. And so it really helps with that. It generally does a really good job. I have some data to back it up. But yeah, so we'll get into the Series 2 one later, like, in a little bit, but you can kind of see some of the stuff. I'll have screenshots on Twitter and stuff for this if you are interested. It's pretty complex, but essentially what this breaks down to is how your average team will perform in a 12-box hobby case of Series 2 based off the checklist that we have been given. There are a few assumptions made in this, and I'll get into those later on as I walk through Series 1 and explain how I go about these. So I'll put timestamps in the video as well. You can skip forward ahead if you've already listened to that ramble from last time, or if you want a refresher. You can do that. So let's go ahead and let's pull up the Series 1 one here. I think that is this one. All right. So let me get this zoomed out properly. All right. So here we go. Essentially, what I do is I take your spreadsheet, so the spreadsheet that comes from Upper Deck, the checklist, and I put it into this Excel document. And then this is for Series 1, by the way, so this is just the whole process behind it. But yeah, I essentially take it, slight modifications to it. Things that I do for it, for example, are if there's for teams for group breaks, because we do it. So Old Winnipeg Jets would be New Phoenix Coyotes, and then also, like, Team Canada stuff. So, like, that if they're an active player, it goes to their current team. If they're a retired player, it goes to most games played, which actually will come up in Series 2. And then other things like, if they were on the Whalers, they'd obviously be a Hurricane because it became that franchise. The Thrashers would become the Jets type of thing. But pretty much I go through, make all those little modifications and stuff like that, make sure all the teams are listed correctly. And yeah, we take this giant checklist and turn it into numbers. So essentially what I do is I take this entire checklist, and we go into the team sheet here. This is kind of how I go about it. Obviously, you can tell Series 1 took a little bit longer this time around, just because it's a little bit different. But I'll kind of explain everything here, and then we'll go through the adjusted one. Actually, the adjusted one. No, we'll do this one because this is kind of the base. But essentially, what this does is this goes through Excel, and it's like, hey, do you have base set and Anaheim as your team name? It's in the hidden column just because it doesn't look as great visually, at least, because I don't need to see those. It just needs to reference them. So if you're that, then we count it. If you're a young gun, then we count it. This is actually should be 3.5, but I'll get into that later on. It's a little bit of a not complicated, but unique circumstances and stuff like that. So, but yeah, essentially it just pulls out for each one. Typically they have something here that it pulls from. So, like, here again is base set. Here is canvas, and again, essentially how it works is this is pulling from the checklist, seeing how many cards are on that team, and then, like, applying it to that team, so that way we know how many are there. And then what you see up here, these numbers are essentially the odds of pulling a specific card in that set within a case. So each young gun, on average, you will pull 1.44. The base set one, just don't ignore that. That just literally, I just copied it over by accident. So it's essentially a young gun. You have a 1 in You get 6 per box, which means you get 72 per case. I know this is 73.4, but it'd be 72 once. I'll get into that later on. But Essentially, it's the box odds, and we go through that with like some crunchers in here. So, um, essentially, it's a 1 in 50 chance of getting a specific young gun, and it's 1 in 4 packs. You get 288 packs in the case, so that is your amount of each card that you should get per case type of thing, like each individual card in the checklist. So you should get, if you have 50 young guns in a checklist, you should get all 50 and then an extra 22, and so it's a little bit under half. It's 1.44, so you get, close enough to that. And we do that for every single thing. So when you come back here, we do that for clear cuts, exclusives and high glosses, stuff like that, and then kind of figure it out. Game jerseys, all that fun stuff, all the way down to your basic sets. And obviously all these formulas are broken. That's okay because I didn't reference this one. This is kind of my first draft of it. What I do is I normally just compile it, and then I kind of tidy it up a little bit, and then make a social one that I share, because it's just easier to share something like this than it is to share something with all the data, and also it's a lot easier to screenshot. But so I move over to the adjusted one, you'll see some things here, like for example, Anaheim's at 3.5. This is just, again, going into everything, making sure everyone has an understanding of what it does, because again, it's not like letter of the law. There is variance, there's stuff like that, but it's a very useful tool to help you evaluate if you're doing team picks or something like that for a case, or if you're just wondering like what the best team to have is, or what your favorite team has is, and or what to expect in a given box. Like, you can go through stuff like that. So so 3.5 is because the Anaheim Ducks have the Young Gun canvas, or Young Gun checklist, which is Caulfield and Zegras. And so typically how that works in a group break is that it gets randomed off between the two teams, so it's a 50-50 chance. So you have 3.5 Young Guns because you have half of one, and it's a 50-50 chance every time. So same thing through the base set. There's a couple teams in here that I think so it's the Devils, the Rangers, the Wild, and I forget who else. The Stars, those are the teams that kind of have their have half a point on the checklist and stuff like that. And then so things like this, plates I changed up for I actually changed up how I calculate them in the spreadsheet again, just because I used to times them by 4, but not really the case anymore. So that's pretty straightforward on how that all works. And then these are like, your super short print hits. So again, in theory, you should get a clear picks every 5 or every 4 cases. Again, it's kind of your odds, and then it also helps figure out like your stuff that doesn't have numbering. You can kind of figure out rough print runs and stuff like this, so it's helpful. I generally will do these for like hobby products, like for like hit based products like Premier, Ultimate, stuff like that, because again, when I'm making mixers, when I'm setting like box combos and stuff like that, it generally will give a good idea of what team is good, what team is bad, and I can use all that data and then kind of make a mixer that's better for more teams, and then also, or make one that like, hey, like, if we're having a double up here, I know that these teams are strong in, say, Series 1, and I know, like, say, like, for example, Anaheim's really strong in Series 1, and, like, Detroit's really strong in Series 2, but Detroit absolutely, like, sucks in Series 1. Like, they're one of the worst teams. They just happen to have a young gun, so they're a little bit above average. They're kind of, it's weird because they have a young gun who has some promise and potential, but like they have no cards relative to every other team in the set, so like they're just like they're middle of the pack team type of thing. But anyways, I use all that combined, both qualitative and quantitative, and kind of figure out like strength of products and stuff like that. And it's fun using that, especially for triple ups too. I like doing that because when I pair up the teams, I'll try to make sure everyone has like a team that has like a high end hit chase at least. So like a good young gun, a volume based team. So like, for example, if you had the Red Wings, you could get a team that has more stuff in it, like Chicago or Colorado type of thing, like paired up with them. The reason being is because it just allows you, this chance at a higher end hit. And also you still should get some volume type of thing. So that's kind of where I use it. But yeah, this is kind of where we ended up for, for Series 1. So as you can tell, it was really strong for Anaheim. I feel like I am going to have to sneeze. But yeah, it's really strong for Anaheim. As you can tell, Detroit was pretty weak based off like, and this is all pre-checklist stuff. This is before we knew about canvas blocks, and this was also assuming, and this is the big part, is because you kind of have to assume the print run when you're doing something like this, especially when it comes to the exclusives and clear cuts. And that was the one thing that I definitely got wrong with Series 1. It doesn't affect the numbers that much. I actually went through and adjusted them today just to make sure, but essentially clear cuts and the canvas black sets both kind of skew it a little bit just because it adds different stuff in. The canvases don't do too much to it. It's a little bit. The exclusives, again, same thing. Like I had it as like kind of, it used to be like 2 to 3 base exclusives and 1 Young Gun exclusives per case. It's not really a thing anymore. At least it wasn't for Series 1. I don't think it was for last year's Series 2, but it was close. But yeah, again, and part of that might be an increased print run, which, again, if you're, we can speculate on it. I mean, you can tell kind of by how often stuff is hitting type of thing. But again, it's one of those things like the demand went way up, so of course they're probably going to print a little bit more because, hey, if you can't access the product, then it's going to be a little bit tougher to get to. So, and it's going to go up in price. So I think they found a pretty good balance. Yeah, so that's Series 1. This is kind of where everything was at. And kind of what it went over is just a base overview of like how things worked out. Again, these are the numbers over here that are the cards per case. Don't worry about reading that. That's for Series 1. I'll try and link that below in the description as well after. I forget about that. And so where that leads us to is, let me pull it up here. Case results for Series 1. So we opened up 1, 2, 3, I think 8. We're about 9 full cases where I have like consistent box numbers between them. So like it's from the same case, and I generally will do that over counting like random boxes and stuff like that just to get a feel for the product, see how often a certain team is hitting and how often a certain team is not. So for that, it's really useful because, again, when I'm doing the breaks and stuff after when I'm sorting, I'll sort them into kind of a few different things. So one of the things I did was I counted cards for every team, and then the other thing I did was count the main hits. And this is one that I was pretty happy with actually doing, was counting how many of each Young Gun we got, because there is a general, like, there's this rumor that, certain Young Guns are more short printed than others type of thing, and it's like, it's not really a thing. Like, you'll look at it and be like, oh, Cole Caulfield is like 1.25, but it's like Drysdale is 2, and Drysdale was one of the higher selling ones at the start. Everyone's like, oh, the big guys are always short printed, and that's not really the case. In fact, you can tell that, like, one of our worst Young Guns to get has been Logan Thompson, and like, he might end up actually being a good one to get. It's just, it's variance over 8 cases. Like, if we were to do another, I don't know, like 5-10 cases, it's likely that these will kind of all creep towards that 1.44 mark. And again, 8 cases isn't a large sample size, but it's large enough to show like, hey, it's kind of just random. Who you get is who you get. I thought it's interesting that we've averaged 2 Drysdales per cases, and then Benoit was just like our most consistent essentially. Actually, it was our first time last time only getting 1 of his in a case, so he was actually hovering over 2 for a while. But yeah, like Zegers, we had a case with 1, 2 cases with 0, a case with 3, 3 with 2, and 1 with 1. So it's like, it's kind of random. This is the first year I've really seen like 3s pretty frequently and 0s pretty frequently. So that was something I was keeping track of, was like the missing Young Guns, just to see how many we were missing. And then, yeah, sometimes, actually our first case we had 74 base Young Guns, and then we had 73. We had one case that had 71, but we got an extra hit in that case. So yeah, it's kind of wild. And then the other things I kept track of were the black canvases, because those were an Easter egg. Was kind of just assuming that they'd be 1 per, or like was trying to figure out how rare they were, and ended up figuring out it's fairly consistent. You get 3 per. We had one case with 4, but that case with 4 we were missing something in it that should have been in the place type of thing. Same with the Young Gun canvas. The black Young Gun canvases, they're one per. We had one case that had two. Young Gun canvases were actually like, we had one case that didn't have the proper amount, but we actually ended up getting an extra one in 3 cases, which is pretty, I don't know, pretty rare, but yeah, just how they're packed. French Young Guns, again, this is right around that mark that we had established in the previous thing, is right around 2.4, so they're falling at their expected rate type of thing. Clear cut Young Guns, we actually had a case that had 2, otherwise it's 1 per. And then this is just your base clear cuts. Again, this is fairly standard. Actually, it should be 3 or 2 point. No, it's 1 in 96, so it should be. I think this might be low. I think. Yeah, it should be. It should be 3. So, a little bit low there. Now that I think about it. Huh. Didn't really realize that. In terms of clear cut exclusives, we've only hit 1, and this is actually a big reason why I was keeping track of it, was for the clear cut exclusives to see how rare they were. And then for other of the acetate sets, so clear picks we got our 2 per 4 case or 8 cases, which is like 1 in 4, which is what the odds are. Generally speaking, the main like case clear card is going to be a clear cut foundations. We hit 1 Fanimation, which I need to add the zeros because it messes it up. But again, same thing, pretty rare card to get. Jerseys, we actually, so the average for jerseys, they were 1 in 96, and we were pulling them more frequently, kind of in the 1 in 72 range. Kind of settled back down a little bit in the past few cases, but to start off, it was like 1 extra jersey card per case, which is okay. We hit 2 patches. Patches are pretty tough. Patches are actually really tough to hit. We've hit 2 total. We actually hit a third base variation in the other half of a case that we have. Still waiting for the other half to add that in there, but yeah, and then numbered cards. The main thing to keep an eye on here is exclusives. We hit exclusives here, and I think we have 1 in this case, and then we also had 1 that had high gloss as well. And then we had 1 that had a Young Gun. We've only hit 1 Young Gun exclusives as well. So it's just keeping track of all our numbered stuff, how tough it is to hit. And yeah, pretty straightforward there. So when we get to the teams, you can see kind of how accurate it was within like region or within like reason. Like for example, Anaheim was like 0.08 after I take the post adjusted one. Like against pre-adjusted. Carolina is actually really off. I'm not quite sure why, to be honest. It could just be, at this point, like, it is only 8 cases. It literally could just be variance. Like, we could end up having a case that they have, like, they've had a couple cases that have had 4 or 5, but, they tend to, like, they're in that 6 range, 6, 7 range. So we could end up having a couple cases where they have 8 cards consistently in a row, and that bumps that average back up, right? Chicago, again, we're pretty much bang on. Colorado, a little bit off, which is kind of funny because we actually, we undershot this. I actually thought this was going to be overshot given how frequently we pull their Young Guns. But yeah, Columbus, again, is a little bit off, but again, it's within like a reasonable margin of error. Dallas, Detroit, Edmonton was one that was way off, and honestly, I don't know why. The current case that we have had 5 cards in it, so like all it can take is 1 card one time, and you have like a massive amount of cards for a team. We'll get into the Rangers later on, and it really swings the average over a small sample size. So Florida was generally above average, but they have more Young Guns, and I think we've hit them fairly consistently. They have, where's Spencer? I know we have Kierstead and Spencer Knight, and we've hit a lot of the Denisenko Young Gun canvases. So yeah. Actually, we haven't hit Knight super consistently. That actually kind of shocks me. I thought we did pretty good at getting him. I mean, we've got him every case, and same with Kierstead, actually. So, I don't know where their other hits are coming through. I might keep better track of, like, the inserts and stuff in Series 2, but we'll see. LA, pretty much, like, close enough. Montreal, about half a card off. That's going to come down to the young guns, I think, missing essentially. Yeah, and it could also just be 50-50s on the checklist as well, because there were a few of those. Or so that was Minnesota. Minnesota, I don't know. Maybe just slightly off, but... And everything is pretty close. Like, the one team, New York, they had a lot of cards on paper. They're averaging about 15 per. And so, like, here's how it can work sometimes is you can get 23, and then you can end up with 9. So, generally speaking, it's all pretty close. The team that really overshot was actually Vancouver. Both Vancouver and Toronto really overshot their averages. Toronto actually started off really weak with only 6, and Vancouver started off really strong with 17, and then they've kind of just been fairly consistent since then. So, yeah. And then Vegas's main difference is honestly not getting Logan Thompson, because you add another, like, what? 1, 2, 3. You add another 4 cards to this. So, like, say you make this one 8 instead of 4, and they're there, right? So that's what it comes down to. Anyways, that's kind of how it works and everything about it and how I use it, and just kind of recapping how Series 1 went. Most part, I'm pretty happy. There's some stuff that I need to fine tune. Obviously, I don't think the checklist was like 100, like the odds were 100% correct, but like they were close enough that it's a general ballpark, right? Like there's no team that's like way undercut, and I mean outside of Carolina, but that's just not in Edmonton, but that's not getting a young gun, and Edmonton is just, you know, when you have a low amount of cards, it's gonna really affect you. And we typically tended to hit around the same type of cards, so that's probably why it's like that. Anyways, that is Series 1 done, so let's go into Series 2, which is kind of the title of the video. So anyways, that's the whole process. I probably won't do that process again. Might do recap videos separately as well, but it's time for Series 1, or Series 2. So first thing you're going to notice is just kind of the widespread of teams here, and how different some of them are in terms of cards per case. That's the word I'm looking for. So like there are some teams that are on paper really, really, really rough, and there are some teams that are really, really, really good. So Anaheim, again, I don't have, actually I should pull up the Young Gun checklist here just to have it beside me, because I don't have it memorized off by heart yet. But Anaheim has some good young guns. Like they've got McTavish, and they've got Gru, so they should be a fairly popular team. Arizona is a team that they've just got volume. I mean, they've got Vejmelka, and I think they've got Provostov, I believe, is their young guns. And then who else do they have? Mayo, and they have one more. Who's their other one? Vejmelka, and Yan Yannick. Right, that's who I was missing. Who's actually not horrible either. So they're kind of going to be one of those teams. Like they don't have any high-end young guns per se. I think Vejmelka might get some interest. I think Mayo maybe get some slight like depth interest just because he has been solid for them. But yeah, that I think they're going to be one of those teams like, hey, if you get them, you're going to get cards, but you're probably not going to be getting super high valued ones, except until we get to the whatchamacallit, the Retired Stars canvas, because they have a Teemu Selanne one. So that's actually where the old teams come in, because it's on the checklist. It's a Teemu Selanne Jets one, and because the old Winnipeg Jets became the Phoenix Coyotes and the new Winnipeg Jets for the Atlanta Thrashers, the cards stick with the franchise, so that Selanne would have gone to Arizona. Yeah, that's pretty much how it works. Boston, again, Boston's just a middle of the pack team. You got a young gun. That's, yeah. Oscar Steen, who's like, again, depth, nothing major. Buffalo, not like Series 1 where they're actually a really solid team. This time they're kind of in the lower probably like 20s and below. Not much more to say there. Calgary, actually, you know what? They might end up being decent. I like Ruzicka as a player. He's, again, good depth option. And also Matt Phillips, if he ever gets a chance in the NHL, he is like a short king, but he's just always been a prolific scorer in every single league. It's just he's smaller, so that's why he's not in the NHL type of thing. So Carolina, they don't have much. I mean, hey, let's go check out the checklist because like this is just a good way to kind of view it. But they have their base set. They have again your clear cuts and exclusives, and these are tough to hit. You have your Frenches, and then you have your retired star canvas is honestly like your big hit, and you've got like a couple dazzlers, and then like Joey Keane, and there's really not a lot there for them. So, it's kind of just they're not a great team. They can end up having a cool hit with the Howe canvas because it's a Hartford Whalers one, but like they're a weak team. So. Chicago, again, middle of the pack team. No young guns, so they're going to be heavy volume focused on like inserts and stuff like that. Colorado, you've got two young guns. You've got Newhook and Ranta. Both have pretty decent hype around them. Newhook especially. Ranta as well, actually. Ranta, I was kind of shocked at seeing some pre-sales for him, but yeah. Columbus is probably going to be one of the sleeper teams. You've got Sillinger, you've got Chinnikov, and you've got who else there? Why am I forgetting their name? Igor and Hoffman. So like Hoffman is like Hoffman's like a meme reference. I mean, if you're watching this on YouTube, you might get the Hoffman reference actually because he was at one point one of the most like broken silver cards in NHL the video game. So because his speed was insanely high, and I always would use them. So but yeah, they're a middle of the pack team. Actually, they're probably a top end team with that card quality, and I think Sillinger is going to be a really good player. I think he'll probably be undervalued at the start, and he'll probably creep up over time. Had a really good rookie year. Had a good World Cup, so kind of a player to keep an eye on. For Dallas, who is their young gun? I think it's Jacob Pedersen. Yeah, so kind of played decent amount of the year for them. Not like major. Again, their card count isn't major, so they're kind of just like they have a young gun. They're a middle of the pack team. Really nothing more. Detroit's the best team in the product. It's not close. You've got two top end players with Raymond and Sider, and I mean like you don't need anything else. Like you've just got two of the top three young guns right there, at least on paper right now. And again, the reason why they have three for young guns is they have the checklist, which is Sider and Raymond. So Oilers, I mean, kind of same thing as last time. They just don't have a rookie. They kind of stink. So next, Florida, you've got Denisenko and Lundell. So Lundell had a really good rookie year. Denisenko's got some promise. So, and given the card quality and quantity, they're going to be probably a top, maybe even a top 5 team. They probably in like that 7 to 5 range, I would say. LA, you've got Byfield and Takchev. I mean, I love Byfield. So they'll probably be one of the sought after teams type of thing just because he's got a lot of potential. Minnesota, the team that could have been really good, but Boldy is going to be next year's Series 1, so they unfortunately kind of fall short. Their young gun is Brandon Duhaime, I believe. Yeah. So kind of a depth player, low card quantity. You're essentially just hoping to hit a parallel of Duhaime or like a Kaprizov parallel, and that's really about it. Montreal, you've got who is their young gun again? I keep on blanking on it. I think Ylönen? Yeah, Jesse Ylönen. So like, not the best, not the worst, but where they come through is the canvases where you have your Perfetti canvas, and I believe you also have your you have Perfetti and you have Ylönen again. So both are good, and then Perfetti or not Perfetti, Caulfield. Why am I saying Perfetti? I'm getting ahead of myself. Caulfield and Ylönen, and you've got the Caulfield checklist. So I think I just saw Perfetti on the checklist and was like, oh yeah, that's who it is. But no, it's Caulfield. Duh. Anyways, we were at Montreal. Nashville has 4. They've got The interesting thing with Detroit that I forgot to mention is that I do not believe that Mo Sider has a Young Gun canvas, and I'm not quite sure if he's going to be like in extended or something as that, but that one kind of strikes me as odd just given some of the names on the checklist. So his actual Young Gun is probably going to have a bit of a premium on it just because it is like his only Young Gun, and that's going to be the card that people are chasing after the most for him. So worth noting that as well. So yeah, Nashville. Nashville is going to be a very interesting team. 4 Young Guns with a couple of decent ones. 1 Canvas in Tomasino, but your Young Guns are Tomasino, Ferentz, Novak, and Allard. Of those, Tomasino is the one that you really want to pay attention to. Good player, so yeah. Devils, they don't have anyone major. They have Mason Gertzen, who, I mean, former Vancouver Giant, kind of a, might be like a kind of cult hero type player there, just given the style that he plays. But outside of that, like, you've got Dawson Mercer. Actually, Dawson Mercer's interesting enough that you could convince me on having the Devils in like the top 10 type of thing. Rangers, your Young Guns are Justin Richards and Niels Lundqvist. Lundqvist is like heavily talked about in trade rumors, so it's kind of a weird state, and Richards is kind of just like he hasn't really shown much yet at either the NHL or even the AHL level, really. So I like Lundqvist as a prospect. I think he's going to be a good depth guy and someone that, like, if you pull him, you might just want to sit on the card for a little bit, because I think he's a very good player. He's got very good underlying numbers, has good AHL numbers. So yeah, Ottawa, who do you got? Ottawa, you got Bernard Docker, I think, as your Young Gun, and yeah, I mean, just kind of a high pick, so he'll have some value there. Flyers, I don't think you have anyone major. I think you got like Max Willman and who is the other Flyer? The other Flyer was, I think, Shushko? Yeah, Shushko. I mean, I like Shushko growing like draft year, but he's kind of quieted down a little bit. Pittsburgh, one of those teams that, like, if you hit, and honestly, I forget who is even in their base here, because if you don't have Crosby base, like, they're actually gonna be kind of meh. Yeah, so like you're hoping to hit on one of these in a high, specifically like Malkin or Letang in a high gloss. You have Crosby canvases; those will actually be solid. And then the NHL passage of Crosby will probably be like your main chase card, but they're gonna be rough. They're not going to be that strong of a team, and so just as a heads up, be aware. And then it's, so I think, the clear, like, best value, well, okay, no, Detroit's just the best overall bet, but your best value bet is probably going to be the San Jose Sharks. They've got 4 Young Guns, 2 of which are really good. I really like Eklund. He didn't get a ton of playing time this year for San Jose, and he only played 9 games and then went back overseas, but really highly touted player. Should have gone higher in the draft than what he did, type of thing. Yeah. And then you have Jonathan Dahlin, who did pretty good for them. Really hot start, kind of cooled off a little bit, but... And there's enough there that you're kind of just like, okay. You've got Jonah Gadjevich, again, kind of like a depth player, but not the worst. And Jasper Weatherby, I think kind of same thing, depth player, not the worst. Yeah, I really think that's the best way to describe it. So he's kind of older, but, you know, solid like depth player. Really nothing more to it. And you've got 3 canvases as well with Dahlin, Eklund, and Weatherby. So, but they have a lot of cards just because they have a lot of Young Guns and they have lots of Young Gun canvases. They're just kind of in everything with fluorescences, rookie portraits. And the reason why they have so much is actually with Series 2, you have all your OPG update stuff. And so that's where a lot of their value is coming through. It is worth noting that the Gadjevich update rookie, like his OPG update rookie is with the Sharks, but his retro is with the Canucks. So just as a heads up on that. Yeah. And then you have the Seattle Kraken. This is their first time in a product, full time. Excuse me, that was just, I don't know what I just inhaled there, but I think just some air. this is their first time in a product, so we have 32 teams. They're better than some of the other teams. So you got your main chase cards are honestly the base set. And then outside of that, anything Cole Lind, because you've got his rookie materials and his rookie threads retro. Yeah, that's what you're looking for here. So you're mainly looking for that. I mean, you got a couple Dazzlers. You don't even have an OPG update, which actually kind of shocks me a little bit. But yeah, that's what you're looking for with Seattle. So St. Louis time. You got Jake Neighbors as your young gun again. Higher end pick, like first round pick, kind of doing okay. Did not horrible in his 9 games this year, whatever he played. So might not be the worst team, might not be the best team. Their absolute strength though is just kind of Jake Neighbors. I think they have the Brett Hall retired stars thing for Canvas as well. The Tampa Bay Lightning, again another solid team. Reason why they're solid is a couple of young guns, Radish and Kachuk, who are both kind of in that like depth here. Radish is kind of above Kachuk, but both are still kind of like just depth players. Outside of that, your big draw, your actual like your huge draw with them is your Day with the Cups. That's the only team that obviously has them. You've got your update rookies and stuff like that. So yeah, interesting enough team to have. Toronto sucks. Like, legitimately, they're just bad in the product. And we'll do the same thing with Pittsburgh because you're hoping to get essentially like Matthews or something in your base set, right? Like that's what you're hoping for is you at least have Marner and Matthews in your base set. That is pretty good because if you hit a high end parallel, like you're gonna be happy. I'm sure people will go nuts over the Ty Domi retired stars for a little bit, but outside of that, you got the Matthews Dazzlers, and then the Tavares passages, but nothing major. Like nothing. That's a team that if you're gonna hit like with a base parallel, and that's gonna be how you get carried. And in saying that, like they're probably gonna be better than some teams just because of that potential. Like they're gonna be higher priced just because a Matthews or Marner high gloss will absolutely sell better than a lot of cards. So, and it's Toronto, they're gonna sell a little bit higher. For the Canucks, we have 2 young guns. We have Podkolzin and Lockwood. Podkolzin is the one that you really want to pay attention to. I think he's a pretty good player. Lockwood's more of a depth option. Again, not the best, not the worst, but just a good depth player. So that's a kind of common theme with this entire set. Actually, I'll get to it after we're through all the young guns, is that it is a very strong set for young guns. It is legitimately like 21-22 Series 2 young gun checklist is as good as any checklist that we've had, and honestly is the strongest since 13-14 Series 1, which is like, but that was McKinnon, Hurdle, Jones. I think Duren was in that. It was just, that one was ridiculously stacked. Yakupov, but that's when like, I know Yakupov's funny to say now, but at the time of release, like that was a massive like, holy crap checklist. This is up there as well. So kind of says a lot that it's as on par with like a lockout checklist. And then Vegas, you got 3 different young guns here. One of them that I am interested in is, so we'll get the 2 that I'm not as interested in, but you've got Jonas Ronberg, and just depth forward, and Vegas is going to need cheap forwards. So he could be like, the thing with the Vegas young gun is that given that they could actually be a Stanley Cup contending team, assuming they stay healthy next year, they're cheap. The depth, the forwards could end up becoming impact players, and they could end up getting value. So they're kind of those ones that like you might want to hold on to. Jake Lecision, again, kind of had an okay year in the depth role for them. Ronberg spent more in the AHL. Lecision was more in the NHL. So the one that I'm most interested in is actually the guy that spent the least amount of time there is Pavel Dorofeyev. He played in the AHL pretty much exclusively and has really good numbers over the past couple of years. So he might be kind of a guy that I kind of sit on for a little bit and speculate on. Next up, we got Washington. They've got Hendrix Lapierre. Again, kind of late falling pick. Was like a late first round pick, but the reason why he went late was because of concussion issues. And then, so like solid upside there as long as he can stay healthy on a good team with good skilled players. So That can also help increase their value, obviously, with points and stuff like that, because that matters. And then finally, Winnipeg, you got Cole Perfetti. He's good. Again, highly touted player. So if we break it down here, and we go to largest to smallest here. So typically what you do is you go through here. Oh, I don't think I talked about actually Anaheim's Young Guns. I think I talked a little bit, but yeah, McTavish is really good. So yeah. So if we go to average cards per case, we're going to see who's the strongest, who's the weakest, and why. So San Jose, clearly the strongest, and essentially it comes down to this number right here. OPG rookie updates are really common, and same with the retros. They're just common enough that it's just going to give them a boost. And in fact, you can see that everyone in the bottom just doesn't have a rookie update. Like, that's literally the difference between a good and an average team. And, like, honestly, even the cutoff here, like, you can tell, like, this is just literally the difference. So it is worth keeping an eye on that. Florida, again, same thing. They've got a couple there. Detroit is really worth bringing up again because OPG, actually, let's go select all. Where is OPG? OPG update. There we go. Detroit's really worth calling out here for the sole reason that they have really strong updates. They have Cider and Raymond, and those two alone. I don't know if you've been paying a lot of attention to the secondary market. You'll understand this because McDavid, like OPG rookies, are selling for an insane amount, and even like Makar stuff. So like they're going to have value, and if they turn out to be insanely good players, which I think both have a reasonable chance, especially Cider, to be like kind of those like superstar level players, those cards are just going to be valuable. And like they may not be, $60, $70 value. They may not even be $20 in value. But if they're like $5-10, like that adds up a lot in a box, right? Especially because they're relatively like common, relatively speaking. And in a given case, you should get at least one of them. And if you get a parallel, hey, you're laughing. So that's kind of worth noting as well for the Sharks. Like, again, you got Eklund. Like, pretty much if you've got a young gun, and like a really strong young gun and a good OPG update rookie, like, you're a solid team to have. So that's kind of when I go back and I'll do some tier. I'll probably do like a full tier ranking stuff for them based off quality and stuff like that. But this is just the numbers. I like getting through the numbers first. So yeah, Detroit's gonna be the team to have in the break. Like, hands down, it's not close. They are who you want to get every single time. I wouldn't be shocked in like pick your price breaks or like pick your team breaks type of thing if they're kind of like if they go up to almost like a third or even half the value of the case. So be prepared for craziness there. Anaheim, very solid team. I like McTavish, so don't sleep on them. Tampa Bay, again, same thing. Like, they just have quantity. If you hit a day with the cup, it's a little bit of, extra, a little bit of a cool hit and extra value there. Flyers, again, not a team that I would have in my top 10 or even my top 15, even though they're the top 10 in quantity. They'll probably be in like that 15 to 20-ish range, just because, I mean, yes, you have two young guns, but they're not great. I don't think they're great. Let me just pull them up quickly because I didn't really check, but like, and I like Shushko growing up, but I think he's just kind of, he's not even going to be playing in North America next year. So that kind of tells you everything you need to know. That, he's going to go get his paycheck and he's going to be happy. And then Max Woolman, same thing. Like, not great. So their young guns aren't good. And that's just really, at the end of the day, what it comes down to. Like, yes, they have quality, or not quality, quantity. They don't have quality, and that's where this sheet is really helpful because, like, hey, if I'm pairing a team up, there's a team that might be like Toronto, for example, where you've got super high-end hit potential, but you've got the Flyers who, like, have quantity. Like, they'd be a good pairing together type of thing, right? So that's why I like doing this type of stuff. Columbus, I think, is honestly, like, the probably third best team in the break, maybe fourth. But you've got some good young guns. You got some good OPG rookies. Yeah. Coyotes, probably a sleeper team. They'll probably be like 15th-ish for me, like literally mid-range team. Actually, they might sneak into the top 15. I'd say they'd sneak into the top 15. They've got enough intriguing young guns and enough card quantity that, like, if you get them in a break, you're not going to be upset type of thing. So, yeah. And then Nashville, kind of same thing. Like, you've actually got a really good young gun with Nashville with good quality. So, they're going to be probably maybe one of those top 5 teams. Vegas is going to be up there. Rangers are going to be lower down. Again, Calgary's kind of going to be in mid-tier. Pretty much, yeah, how it works out. So you can tell that there's a few drop-offs here. I think Vancouver will be a team that'll be in the top 15 just because of Podkolzin. Montreal's going to be a top 15 team just because you have a Caulfield canvas. Florida's already up there, but you've got the Spencer Knight canvas there as well, so don't forget about that. That's going to be valuable. Yeah, that's really about it on the breakdown. So, again, full disclosure here is that use this as a guide. Don't use it as state of fact, because when the dust settles on this product, I would probably expect the cards to be within like plus minus 1-2 cards of this range. The interesting thing to note is that right now, based off of all the odds that Upper Deck states, it is 305.5 cards per case, which if you divide this by 20, is it by 12? Yeah, 305.5 divided by 12, which is how many boxes. You get 25.45, which is about an extra hit per box, 1.5 per box, which kind of lines up with last year's Series 2, where you got a canvas and dazzlers in a pack, and then a French and a portraits in the same pack. So you kind of got a couple extra hits in there. I would imagine that we'll probably see a similar thing this year. So again, just based off these numbers, like just purely based off that, I could be wrong, and that's one of the caveats to have in. The other caveat I forgot to mention is that I have pre-included in the numbers here the canvas blacks. So the reason why I did that is because I would be very shocked if they did them for Series 1 and not for Series 2. So that's about it. Hopefully you found this video helpful. If you did, let me know. If you want to see more of them, let me know. Yeah, I'm probably going to hop off the stream for a little bit. But yeah, thanks again for tuning in. And yeah, if you want to see more, let me know. I'll probably start doing more hockey card content videos and stuff like that over the next little bit. Kind of want to get a podcast going around it because I feel like it could be some fun. So yeah, take care, and I will catch you on the flop side. See ya.